Without wasting any further time, people, this is Sunday, 26th of July, 2020, and a couple of things have happened recently in the country that are worth giving attention to. Even though we all don't like to talk about Nigeria or talk about anything bordering on it, but then it shall happen, shall happen. So let's talk about. I am live with the popular author of a book that trended recently on the cyberspace in Nigeria. The book titled "Do Not Die in Their War," and we are going to be chatting, talking about a couple of issues that have happened in Nigeria. Because each time we talk about these issues, somebody gets orientated. At least one or few other persons get converted among the people who always argued for the problem. But this time, I have Dele Farotimi live on the show. As I've already introduced him, he is the author of the book "Do Not Die in Their War." It's my pleasure to bring to your screen right now. How are you this Sunday, sir?
It's a beautiful day in a beautiful country.
I can see. Are you currently in Nigeria?
By the grace of God.
Okay, good. So it's a beautiful
Why?
country. I agree with you.
It's a beautiful country. The
Absolutely.
monkeys are our rulers. We have a beautiful country. Let's be clear about that.
Okay,
Nigeria is
I
a
agree with you.
beautiful country. Yeah, that's a fact.
Okay, let us start with that book. Do not die in their war.
Yeah.
Something must have prompted that thought, that witty subject or title or topic of that book. And then I wonder that sometimes a couple of people tried to give hope, like, oh, if we try this way, that way, okay, let us support Buhari in 2015, something will change. No, me, I will die for Buhari. Oh, me, I will die for Tinubu. Oh, me, I will die for Jonathan. You see the person who has the key or the master key to the solution to this country. But at what point did you already know, or did you change your mind that people should not die in their war? I mean, we should start from that.
You've asked a pretty complex question, but I must thank you very much for asking that question, because you said a book that is trending on Nigerian cyberspace. It's funny, that book is over a year old.
Hmm.
The essay that gave the title to the book was written in February 2015, and it was published. Only the Guardian newspaper found the courage to publish that essay in February 2015. There is this heresy that I also used to propagate, and that's the one that used to ascribe some sort of divinity or prophetic ministry to the person of Fela Anikulapo. Because when you listen to his song, it seems like he sang it just yesterday, because the very same things that he sang about 30, 40 years ago are still with us today. So we all started imagining that Fela was a prophet. But Fela wasn't a prophet. Fela was merely a truth teller. He looked around him, he saw the reality of the decay in Nigeria, and he spoke his truth. And they are relevant today. So let me now bring it to "Do Not Die in Their War." When I was writing the essay titled "Do Not Die in Their War," I was observing the metamorphosis. No, let me rephrase. I was witnessing the unveiling of Muhammadu Buhari. Prior to 2015, I had voted for Muhammadu Buhari in every election that he ever stood, because I had this illusion of the messianic capacities of Muhammadu Buhari. A myth was sold, especially because of the shortness of his reign the first time around, and the draconian excesses that we interpreted as discipline. There was an illusion. I bought into it. I'm guilty. I was a Buharist until 2014, towards the end of 2014, as I observed the formation of the APC, the emergence of Muhammadu Buhari in the party of saints, peopled by crooks. APC was the clarifying factor for me. The fact that the thinking thieves could find room to work with the unthinking thieves. When I say the thinking thieves, I'm talking about the AC. The unthinking thieves were the PDP rump that came with Saraki, Dogara, and the rest of them. And then the Messiah of CPC also found the space within the same party. So I found a very strange conglomeration. People who definitely did not ever seem capable of working together were working together on the Buhari project. I saw Obasanjo suddenly found space to tolerate a Tinubu.
It was their
And I
navigator.
knew immediately. Sorry?
They said it was their navigator, in fact.
Yes, it became the navigator. So I knew immediately that we were in and we had been taken in by a fraud. It was clear. Where have you ever seen a house divided against itself that stood?
None.
And I was immediately it became clear to me that there was a elite consensus to make sure that a fraud was marketed as change, and the yearning of the Nigerian people for a true change was packaged, skillfully packaged. Tinubu is one of the best marketers in this town. He packaged a moribund product. A person left government for 30 years. He did not acquire a certificate. He did not go to any school. He did not write any book. He did nothing. He nursed cows that did not produce. And somehow, the 30 years interregnum and the history and documented history of his bigotry that should have been enough to alarm anybody was forgotten. I am grateful to God that I am alive to see them draw their swords against each other. Because the war I was referring to, it hasn't even started yet. Their war is just starting. But we are the ones who need to define what our own wars are. So do not die in their war yet. The title came because I could see that the Nigerian people were being taken for a ride, and that it was definitely nothing to do with we the people. It was always to do with them, not us.
And that was as far back as
2015. Guardian published it on the 7th of February 2015. Sunday Guardian. Do not die in their war. Not a single comment was allowed on the article. It was deleted. Let's leave the story of that publication for now, for another day. But suffice to say, I wasn't being prophetic. I was just using my God-given brain, drawing from the facts that were substantially in the public domain. What sort of change did the Nigerian people expect to get from the APC? Every thief in the Nigerian political space who had any brain in 2014 jumped ship and went into APC. Every crook in Nigerian politics, each and every one of them. So what sort of change? Odius Okalu was in that party. Name the person now. Who is the person in APC that wasn't once upon a time in PDP or a part of the rot somewhere? Some people genuinely made the error of jumping in, assuming, and let's be clear about this. This is not me bashing the APC. There is no difference between them. I was just making that clear. Do not die in their war because it's them. I predicted in that, if I actually have a copy of the book, but I recall predicting very clearly that today they are in APC. Tomorrow they will be in PDP. That was actually where the punch phrase now came. Do not die in their war. It is not about you and me. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. We've created the most...
They are not fighting because of us.
No. Look, we've created a monster in Nigeria. In the place of democracy, we have a feudal system. We pretend to vote. So the class of rulers is a rarefied class. When you enter that class, okay, if you don't believe they are above the law, what you and I have seen at the National Assembly in the last week or two, how is any one of those crook any different from Hush Puppy? Who is the bigger crook? Is it those ones or Hush Puppy? I say it without any equivocation. Akpabio is a bigger crook than Hush Puppy. And so are each and every member of that committee, because that is what Akpabio has essentially said, and nobody has held him to account. At the end of the day, they will lie to themselves and they will say, oh, they've gone to court, so the thing is subject to this and nobody can talk about it. Fact of the matter is simple. We have created a system where those for whom we pretend to vote are the class of feudal rulers. They are above the law. They do whatever they please. And we have become inured, and we are even no longer shocked. They call billions and trillions, and you can see the blatant disregard for any law. What law? They are above the law. They know nothing will happen. They know. See, what is happening is that they themselves have lost control of their system. That is why you see every day they are bringing their fight into the public domain, because they've lost control. They don't even know what to do anymore. Power has gotten them to become crazy.
Now, okay, you want to make an allusion?
I was going to close by saying this. I love the sound of my voice, so don't say I run on. But here is the thing, bros. I think it was Lord Acton. He said power corrupt, and then he went on and said more and more things. Nonsense. Just stop it at power corrupts. That bit about absolute power corrupt.
Absolutely. No. It's not necessary.
The purpose of power is to corrupt. That is the entire purpose of power. It is meant to corrupt. But the law never gives a power that it does not limit. But when you now have a class of rulers who are above the law, that is when you enter Nigeria, because impunity begins to reign. What we call corruption is not corruption, is impunity. What we are seeing at the National Assembly, what is playing out in our state houses, is not corruption, is impunity. Call it its proper name. We don't have laws that bind those ones. They are above the law. That is our situation. Power corrupts. End of story.
But okay, anyways, I know that it is subject to anybody who wants to make thesis out of that. But once there is law, the law is meant to limit the corruption the power is supposed to corrupt. But when you now have absolute power, it means you disregard the law.
Look around you. See, I intend to start a lecture series beginning from the 1st of August.
Okay.
And I'll be dealing with some of these subjects, because it's very important that we understand that calling something a name does not make it what you call it. Nigeria is a very interesting place. We claim to practice a democracy, but we are not in a democracy. So calling it a democracy does not make it a democracy. Calling Nigeria a nation does not make it a nation. And the fact that it is a state with geographical boundaries does not make it a state, because it lacks citizens. You have two classes. You can't have citizens. Some people are above the other, so you have differential levels of citizenship. So you don't have citizens in the true sense of the word citizens. You have rulers and subjects. The rulers are above the law. If you don't believe me, go to the National Assembly and see the crimes to which they are freely confessing. What has anybody done to them? Who's going to do anything to them? Here the figures they are calling. They are above the law. There are no laws in Nigeria that binds them. It's you and I that the law binds. The law binds the likes, even in the international community, face it. The law binds the like of Hush Puppy. It doesn't bind our crooks. They roll out red carpets for them. They own houses everywhere in the choice places, and they know that they are crooks. They know they are thieves. Cameron said we are fantastically corrupt. You think he's talking about the average Lagos person who is struggling and stealing to earn a living? He's talking about our rulers. They see what they bring to their banks. They see the houses they buy. They saw the trajectory of their riches. They saw how a man had no kobo and became a billionaire in pounds and dollars. They saw it. They've seen it. So when Cameron was talking about us being fantastically corrupt, he wasn't talking about the petty crooks in Nigeria. He wasn't talking about the 419 person. We constitute less than 3% of world cybercrime losses. He was referring to our rulers, the impunity of their stealing. That is what he was talking about. Please.
When I saw Oshiomholi's previous tapes in Edo castigating Ize, calling him a cultist, a murderer or attempted murderer, calling him a thief, and all sort of names, as and describing him and portraying him as somebody who should never be allowed to come near the state government power at all. And then when I saw that he came back to say no, he said Yamu is actually it is actually the other way around. I remembered your book, Do Not Die in Their War. So I'm gonna ask you to situate it now using Oshiomhole as a case study in Edo state election.
You see, you know what you've just done. When we used to play, when I was younger and I used to play table tennis, there was a slang. We would say, Osaf, Milo, Nisha. You know, what you've done you're just throwing me softballs. when Oshiomhole, I remember when I was asked pretty much the same question by Mr. Abati on our right. Question you need to ask yourself is this: how did we get to the point as a people where a man who has no character is the person vouching for another person's character? So no, let's be clear. When I say that, you can take that statement generically. Take it that I'm speaking of Oshiomhole as a type. Take it as a type. Let's just agree I'm speaking of him as a type.
Yes.
I am not sure you are going to find up to 5 persons who have been politically active in elective offices in Nigeria in the last 21 years who are capable of standing up to vouch for anybody's character. Because their work speaks volume as to what their own capacities and integrity might be. So exactly what qualifies Oshiomhole to speak to anybody's character? Let's keep that to one side. And I must continue to hasten to make clear that I speak of Oshiomhole strictly as a type. But his type is a particularly painful type because this was a man who once appropriated to himself the title of comrade. Exactly how much camaraderie did he display in his governance of the people of Edo State? What is he pointing at? To what level have we subjectivized the truth to the point where it is possible for any one of these characters to even recommend anybody as dog catcher? Exactly what? There are men about whom we still speak in this country today who governed their portion of this country for substantially less time than any one of these people who have acquired power and cornered our commonwealth in the last 21 years. So please, insofar as Edo State is concerned, I actually don't blame Oshiomhole. It is the people of Edo State that I blame. Their inability to record, and I speak of them again as well as a type. They are a type of Nigerians. How did we get to the point where it is the thieves that are the ones telling us who to appoint Megad? How? How did we get to that point? How? Don't... please, we must get to the point where the Nigerian people on their own identify their own interests and stop allowing people who do not have our interests at heart in any way, shape, or form from being the ones who are telling us who our friends are, who our enemies are. That is how they will tell some people, the Igbo are your problems. And they'll believe it. A man whose wife might be Igbo is the one telling his fellow tribesmen that the Igbo are their problems, and they will buy it. They will carry it on their head and be selling it like Ipekere in traffic. A man, Oshibajo's daughter, wasn't it, married a Muslim. Beautiful. Why aren't we like that? Why aren't they all preaching that? Ganduje, the banker one, and the consular authority, they are
Babariga banker.
See, we need these divisions and recommendations by fraudulent human beings must stop. We should tell ourselves, we should be able to identify what is in our own best interest. We need to get to the point where we are not the ones being told, okay, now, in Edo State, Oshi Omole suddenly acquired the right to tell people who to vote for. In Lagos State now, somebody will tell the Yoruba tomorrow that, oh, it is the Igbo. That is why another Yoruba man in another party should not be voted. You see, these constant divisions of the Nigerian people for convenience of the rulers, I don't blame them. It's in their own interest to divide us. But we must learn to identify our own interest and stop allowing ourselves to be divided like this. Oshiomhole does not qualify to recommend anyone. And this is not an endorsement of Obaseki either. The same Oshiomhole recommended him. So what's the difference? 6.5 a dozen. It's the same.
So will you be surprised if Edo State people still come back to vote the new recommendation by Adams Oshiomhole?
Frankly speaking, nothing surprises me in Nigerian politics
Anymore.
It's not possible now. If I'm still surprised by anything that happens in our political space under this fraudulent feudalized democracy, then I'm a fool. Was I not in this country and did I not predict it? And it's in my book that Ekiti was a foregone conclusion with APC in power, Bola Tinubu. As Bola Tinubu there, I predicted Osun correctly, bang on the money. I predicted Ekiti, bang on the money. I predicted Kogi. And I'll tell you how, see, let's tell ourselves the truth, my brother. Nigerian politicians are the easiest animals to predict. They're very predictable. If you give food to an hungry dog, it will eat. Unfortunately, we have a set of politicians who are not unlike rabid dogs. They are always hungry. Their hungry never ends. No matter how much they steal, they are never full. They must keep stealing. It's a compulsive disorder. Because if it was merely about stealing, look around you now. They've stolen more than enough. Some of them, if they die, if they live 100 lifetime, the money won't finish. But they haven't even wrapped their brains around the fact that they are rich. The poverty is spiritual, is ingrained in them. No matter how much they steal, it's like a big void. They just keep dumping inside that void. It never ends. And they don't even know. They are not even conscious of the fact of what they have done. So, it's, please, nothing any one of them does, or the people themselves, because at the end of the day, what difference does personnel changes make when the system itself is the way it is? What difference does personnel changes make? Whoever wins, the plight of the Edo people will not change. The system will still work to service the rich. The system will still work to ensure that there is no way for class migration, because they will not invest in public education, they will not invest in public health, they will not invest in infrastructure. They will continue to bring policies that would encourage urban drift. You find people living in the rural areas coming into the cities, becoming unemployed, leaving the rural area depopulated. That is the tragedy of our system. So for the Edo person, he's not really connected because the situation will not change. So the person who will win in Edo would have to be the person with the biggest gun, who has control of the police and army, who has the more thugs, and who is able to deploy more cash. Because the vote is not sacrosanct anyway. The average Edo person, when was the last time they saw 10,000 naira at a go, especially in the rural areas? They'll bring their money, 10,000, 20,000. It's an investment. They've stolen enough, and this is the harvest time for the poor. So the poor does not see any correlation between the situation and any personnel changes. So it's just another time to sell the vote, and they are going to do so. And even if they don't, the fact of the matter remains that the man capable of bringing the most violence to play will win. And if it is not the anointed of the system, there is always the judiciary to travel. And I say that without any equivocation. I've seen sufficient shocks to know that once it goes to the judiciary, there
By
you
the
are.
judges. Over.
I didn't say that. Oh.
Over and copy and over. Over.
Oh, Nigeria, we hate it.
A few other events recently.
Yeah.
President Muhammadu Buhari traveled to go and
Ajala travel.
them counter terrorism and to go and give them aid. Whereas Nigeria currently, even before he left, has been Southern Kaduna has been burning. People dying in Kaduna every day. And then terrorism is also increasing. Our soldiers are dying because they are not equipped to face the war. And the little mileage our soldiers cover by getting some of these terrorists arrested, we reverse them again by releasing them back to the society. Only yesterday, another 600 and something were said to have been, they were given, in fact, they got Ashwebi, they gave them uniform, and we even learned that they are even giving them some money to return to the society. I mean, what does this do to you? All this information, what did they do to you?
Nigeria. You see, what you've just done is very wicked. I try my best sometimes to. I go through a process that is not unlike anesthetics, like when you have anesthesia administered. And that is a process where I just deliberately refuse to wrap my brains around some things, because so many abominations have been normalized in Nigeria that if you manage to remain sane living in Nigeria, you have merely proven that you are a madman to me. How a father whose children are dying, starving, who has never once found the grace to acknowledge the slaughter in southern Kaduna or do something about it, who is almost invisible in his own country, somehow finds the strength, the stamina, the vigor to up abroad a plane to go to Mali. He couldn't send anyone. He had to be physically present in Mali. And in our backyard, in Kaduna here, people were dying And speaking of Kaduna, this morning I posted something that I had first posted in 2019. You know, Facebook will remind you on its anniversary. So they brought it back again. So I reposted it because it remains constant. Truth is forever constant. I said, if you have been an instrument for the oppression of another, you have served Satan and most certainly offended God. Seek out the victims of your wickedness where you can and offer your repentance and restitution when possible. God abhors injustice and grants none dominion over the other. So I posted the same thing. I picked it up and tweeted it out. And somebody tagged El-Rufai. And I said, wow, this person can't be more right. El-Rufai swore an oath before God to serve and protect the people of Kaduna State. He has failed woefully. And his failure is beginning to border almost on complicity. Because it is difficult to believe. It is very difficult to believe that a diligent governor serves in Kaduna State with the kind of horror stories that are coming out of southern Kaduna. The blatant nature of the injustice being done to those people. I assure El-Rufai and every other person that is either responsible or irresponsible, that ultimately, as those victims are today, so shall we be someday. We will all stand before God and answer for those people. It is painful, but that is what we have become. And when it comes to the Boko Haram graduates, you know, I have said without ceasing that the Nigerian state is criminal in the extreme. It starts the problem, it creates the problem, pretends to treat the problem, exacerbates it by its actions and inactions, and further endangers not just the state, but the so-called citizens who are trapped within it. How did Boko Haram begin? They were somebody's militia. At least they were tolerated as a militia. Almost every part of Nigeria with one security challenges or the other has its root in state complicity. Today, the Boko Haram scourge has become a source of untold riches for a lot of people. And they are pretending to treat the problem, but they are only lying because they don't want the problem to end. They profit from it. I know of nowhere else in the world where terrorists have been successfully reintegrated back into society. Who did the psychological evaluation? Just recently in Britain, I remember that there was some stabbing and the terrorist was killed. It was revealed that this same guy had gone through a de-radicalization program. And if the British are saying they had a radicalization program, I believe they even have a functional one. Do we even have one? Who are the people administering this de-radicalization program? And yet, we bring out people from prisons. We treat terrorists with kids' gloves. Already now, there is an unhealthy alliance emerging between the so-called headsmen and the Boko Haram terrorists. And they all know now that even when you are captured, even on the battlefield, the Nigerian army will de-radicalize you. And when they are done de-radicalizing you, they will even... I watched them and I was just stunned. and co up and down the place, everybody wearing white, including socks. Meanwhile, the people in the IDP camp, they are dying needlessly, starving. Kids are not able to go to school. You are treating terrorists like royalties, or perhaps they are. And then the victims are left to fend for themselves. Nigeria is a state at war with itself, and it will kill itself if it continues like this.
Okay, lastly, I mean, we've discussed all sorts about the build-up, the problems so far, including the recent ones. But a lot of people are tired, just like you. And then people started profiling different solutions. Some believe, oh, it has to be revolution. Others believe, oh, we can still carry out revolution through the ballot. Let's prepare for 2023. Others believe, no, something bloody has to happen. While others believe, oh, no, 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 let us return to default. We were forced together. This is marriage of inconvenience. Everybody will be able to micromanage his own problem if we go back to our individual regions and govern ourselves. What do you prefer? Different people have preferred different things. What do you see as solution in all this?
Thank you very much. You know, I've always loved arguments. For me, arguments are not quarrels. They're not necessarily fights. Arguments, perhaps because I'm a lawyer, but long before I read law, arguments have always been a way of refining thoughts. That's how I view arguments. So you bring your idea, I bring my idea, we reason it out. We might shout when we are doing so in passion, but as long as we both recognize the need to talk and not fight, then it's fine. I don't believe that any personnel changes will save the Nigerian state. No personnel change can change Nigeria. If they put me into office tomorrow as president and give me 10 years to run Nigeria using this constitution, I'll fail woefully. I guarantee you that. I will fail. In fact, they will probably impeach me within 2 months. I frankly have no faith whatsoever in the Nigerian constitution. But I am a believer in the Nigerian nation. I don't believe in the fallacy of secessionist arguments. I actually believe that the Nigerian state sponsors most of those agitations. Even when the agitators are unaware, what they fail to understand is that for as long as we are focused on dividing Nigeria and we are fighting all these secessionist battles, and we're having this, Yorubas are telling themselves they will be better off in Odua Republic, the Igbo man, marginalized brutally since 1966, if the truth be told, rightly believes that he is better off anywhere except Nigeria. So the flame of Biafran secessionist passion has always been high because they are the victims. They are the first line victims of the Nigerian state. And then you hear the Niger Delta, especially the conscious ones amongst them. I've talked to some Ijaw brothers. I listen to them. I feel their pain. I've had them. But they are not the ones you see as militants. These are people who have no interest in carrying guns, but they feel their pain. Some of these people, their legitimate grievances are sometimes exploited by charlatans who then harness these grievances to either play politics, identity politics on behalf of the people, and then gain power. Sometimes they don't go mainstream. The ones who go mainstream are the ones who play the grievance politics and take it mainstream, and then they gain power. Almost every Igbo politician carries the grievance of the Igbo man. But no Fulani man has ruled in the Southeast for the last 21 years. Yes, the Nigerian systems are inequitable. I agree 110%. But how many Fulanis have ruled in Imo State or Abia? So at the end of the day, when you come down to the Southwest, where you find strong secessionist sentiment as well, the question to ask is, how many Igbos have ruled in Yoruba land? How many Fulanis have ruled in Yoruba land? So the problems are not going to be necessarily addressed by breaking up the country. But that's the first tier of the argument. There is a more cogent argument that is always conveniently ignored by each and every one of the persons who have argued that Nigeria should be broken. And that is the fact that they are ignoring the minorities. There is no ethnic minority in Nigeria today that would ever agree that Nigeria should be broken into any one of those utopian republics that the secessionists would argue. And the sum total of the minority groups in Nigeria, they are by far higher than any one of the majority groups. The sum total of minorities in Nigeria are by far more than the Yoruba people. The sum total of the ethnic minorities in Nigeria are by far more than the Igbo people. The sum total of the ethnic minority groups in Nigeria today are by far more than the Hausa Fulanis. And let's be clear about something that has for long escaped a lot of people in Nigeria. There is no monolithic northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria harbors some of the most diverse ethnicities in Nigeria, and they are the most fiercely nationalistic. They are compelled to be because they come from a long history of Fulani enslavement. They don't want to become part of some fabled Arewa republic. They don't want to be any part of that. And how do you think the Eguman feels about becoming part of an Odua republic? How do you think the Eguman, what do you think he has to say about that? He's part of Lagos State. Small as Lagos State is, the road to Badagry is the road to hell. 21 years of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that road is still like that. 21 years. How do you think the Eguman wants to be part of? He just wants to be part of a system that is equitable to all. I am of the opinion that it is actually by far easier to work for a united Nigeria where each person's right is the same as the next person's right, and where all are equal before the law, and there is no class that is above the law. If you offer everybody within the geographical space called Nigeria the opportunity for self-actualization under the rule of law, you'll be hard-pressed to find anybody wanting to leave. It's better to be the big country that we are, but we are big for nothing right now because our leaders our rulers are big for nothing, without any exception. They are little men without imagination. They can't even imagine what history will say of them if they should break the norm and do something different. Stop stealing. Just build. Build with history in mind. Build with posterity in mind. Come. How easy do they think it would be for them to become legends, unforgettable in history, if all they would do? Imagine if Bola Tinubu had built Lagos State in the last 21 years. Just imagine that. Let's not talk about every other part of Nigeria. Just imagine that in the last 21 years, Lagos State had been diligently served and ruled. Imagine that. So please, the problem we have...
let me bring in one simple hypothesis here. Although I have not heard what your own solution is. You have tried to dissect what each of the arguments is.
No, the solution is simple. Sorry, there was a lot to unpack before answering you.
Yes, I get.
But my own position is clear. Nigeria needs a revolution. Let me be very clear, unequivocal. Let me be very, very clear. I have tried to define this before. The word revolution simply means a turnaround. It is always the state that seeks to impose violence in order to stop the change, because the system and its beneficiaries would always resist change. And Nigeria is on a tinderbox. It already has several implosions going on within its territory. It cannot really withstand much by way of violence anymore. So I will never encourage that. But there are plethora of choices non-violent choices to force a change. And Nigeria needs to change, because if it does not turn around, change its entire governance systems, because the current governance systems are not sustainable. Nigeria is already dying. It's been asphyxiated. The neck of the system is already on everybody's, the knee is already on everybody's neck. So
Well,
my position is clear. It is a revolution, and it must be peaceful, because if it becomes violent, only the state and the system would profit.
So now, it sounds virtual to a lot of people to say, "Oh, we need revolution." It just sounds like some kind of illusory words, you know. But then, if you say Nigeria needs to change, it
Yes.
still sounds arbitrary. I mean, abstract. Like Nigeria in the abstract sense needs to change. Who changes it? Who who starts it? Who follows? How many people are required? What does it entail to change the system?
You know, Kwame Nkrumah said something, and I'll quote him. He said, revolutions are brought about by men who think as men of action and act as men of thought. Men who think, first thing they think,
And then
as men of action. So they don't get themselves into a situation where their thinking paralyzes them. But when they act, they also act as men of thought. Before you presume to demand a change, the first thing you do is to educate the people. The Nigerian people have been for long disconnected from the struggle for their liberation. But that is also because the would-be liberators mischaracterized the struggle. The generation that came before ours, the Ganifawe Imes, the Bekor and some Kuti of blessed memory, and of course, the highly revered Baba Wole Soyinka, they mischaracterized the nature of the struggle that they led. They thought it was a fight for democracy. That was what they thought. So they didn't pay attention to the system. And because they were treating symptoms, their generation wasted a lot of time. But it is for our own generation to correctly identify the nature of our struggle, so that we will correctly identify our tactics, correctly identify our soldiers. And when I say soldiers, I mean peaceful soldiers. And I will explain myself. The first phase in the revolution that must take place in Nigeria is educative. I spent time. I wrote a book. I spent time. I sat down with one of the most brilliant legal minds I've had the pleasure of working with, Ralph Nwoke. We drafted a 59-page constitution. We annexed it to the book itself that runs to over 260 pages. On the first anniversary of writing that book, I started giving it out for free online. It's deliberate. I am seeking to educate minds, get us to the point where we all understand that where we are is not normal. If we don't get to the point where we recognize the need for a change as a people, what will merely happen is that the like of me, if I was stupid enough, would begin to think that I could revolt on the people's behalf. So I'll come out, and then the state will simply grab me and silence me. I knew we have the benefit of watching the ones who came before us, and we saw what their struggles were. So we must of necessity learn from it. My generation watched how the people saw us as nuisances when we went out on the street to protest on their behalves. So I learned very quickly that you cannot revolt on a people's behalf. You have to connect them to their struggle. The first stage of connecting them to their struggle was
Education.
what led me to write this.
Mm.
I wrote it and I gave it out for free, and it's still out for free. Anyone who wants one simply goes to delefarotimi.com. It's there, available for free. There is a reason. The difference between a mob and an army is education. You cannot discipline a mind that you have not educated. Since I do not believe in violence, it is necessary that I educate the people about why they need to stand. Because the day will be coming, and it will be coming soon, where we'll be telling the people, you know what, let's sit down at home for a couple of days. If we went out onto the street to protest the injustice that we are seeing, the Nigerian police, who is as much a victim as you and me, will be ever ready to shoot his gun and his tear gas, obey the last order, kill and go. But if we sit down in our homes and we talk to ourselves and say, you know what, the only way we can protest without being deemed violent, you can't even have you can't have a peaceful march without the police demanding an illegal permit that the courts have said repeatedly is illegal. The police will still insist on its production. And even if you had one, they will still shoot you. The Nigerian state is murderous. He has no problem killing one or two persons to disperse a crowd. And I have no gun with which to fight anybody. I know only the state would win if you turn violent. But it is necessary that you raise the people's consciousness to the point where when you tell them, you know what, wear black shirts on Monday. Let's mourn the loss of our nation. When the people hear, because you've given them a basis to identify with the struggle. Nobody is throwing stones. You can't imprison me for wearing black shirts now. You can't. I left my hair. That's my own protest. I could have picked up a stone by the same token and be throwing stones. But you and I know what will happen to me if I try that. But no, but okay, so maybe they will catch me and say I'm a Yahoo boy and shave my head, as I've been doing to some people. It's possible. But the fact remains that if you have disavowed violence, it does not necessarily mean that you've become a sitting duck. There are various options by which we might be able to communicate our displeasure with. How long do you think the Nigerian state will survive if we all agreed we'll stay at home for 1 week? If we just stayed at home. If you mobilize for it for like a month, nationwide, speak people's languages, let them understand this is not Igbo versus Yoruba, Hausa versus anything. It's us versus them. And they are clear. They are known. They've already created that super class. What if we told ourselves, stay at home for a week and we don't come out? Or we come out, even the soldiers will join you because they are suffering as much as you and me. The police buys food from the same market. Their monies are daily devalued as well. Think about it. If you kept money in a Nigerian bank today, at best, you probably get about 4% for your deposit. If you are borrowing, you are going to be paying about 26%. Inflation rate is about 11 point something percent. So even the money you keep in the bank is daily devalued. They are the only ones who are ahead of the game because we are the ones maintaining them. They can
I'm so sorry. I think we have to reconnect him. Please, if you are trying my number, do not do it at this time. Please, if you are trying my number, do not do it at this time. I'm on a live show. Please, do not. I'm
let
on a
me
live show.
to write.
Please, can you call back? Thank you. So, if you are calling my number right now, please do not do it at this time. I'm on a live show. Please, I have a guest. So this is the book of Dele Farotimi. If you want to find a free copy, you can go to www.delefarotimi.com to find the book. So let's go back. I have my guest back on the show. Welcome back. So sorry, it was
No, it's fine. This is happening.
somebody was trying to call in. So please, but let me just bring you uh, just a hypothesis. You said something about if Tinubu had, in the last 24 years, seriously paid or invested in Lagos, into Lagos, instead of stealing, looting, or spending on other states to acquire other states, Lagos would not be like this, because for average person who identifies with Lagos, whether as somebody from Benin Republic or Egun or whatever, all they care about is a working system. They don't care about whether it is by a social person. Now, what I want to ask is this. Don't you think it is by the same token that those who are asking that we unbundle Nigeria and return it to default regions for everybody to govern themselves, don't you think it is about the same reason? Because it looks like the resource from Niger Delta, the resources from Lagos and other southwest states, and who have industries, are being used to go and buffet, or to go and sponsor or develop other regions who are not, according to them, not bringing something to table. So if Bola is taking resources from Lagos to go and acquire Edo, to go and acquire other northern states, Lagos will be at the deficit for not having road projects, not having standard electricity and security projects, and the rest of them. I mean, don't you think that is the reason most people are arguing that we return this to default? And as a component of that question, do you not also think that if you say Nigeria should continue this way, are you not by implication also saying that you support the way it was forced together from the beginning without contribution or input by the local potentates?
I think there might be a misunderstanding here.
Okay.
So let me first of all attempt to clear that up quickly.
All right.
I have never once believed or agreed that Nigeria should continue the way it is.
Okay.
When I speak of a revolution, I'm actually saying that it cannot continue the way it is. But my own argument is that
what's wrong?
Found. Sorry?
Okay, go ahead, please.
The solution is not to be found in breaking up Nigeria.
Okay.
The solution is in a restructure of the governance systems. It's not a personnel thing, and it's not about, you spoke of 4 regions. They're actually not 4, if the truth be told. There were 3 originally, and then there was the Willings Commission. The Willings Commission could not agree on the creation of further regions, but threw it back, but recommended 3, which would have brought it to the 6 geopolitical zones that we currently talk about in Nigeria. But I have recommended in the past, and I was very clear about this, that if you want to go back, the only thing you can do is to readopt the 1963 Constitution, which had the 4 regions, and then walk forward from that position. Because that was the last time the Nigerian people, the potentates that you refer to, that was the last time they were consulted before a constitution was drafted for them. They drafted their own constitution. The last Nigerian constitution that can validly talk about we the people is the 1963 Constitution. Every other constitution that has governed Nigeria since then have not been the will of the Nigerian people, but the will of the Nigerian rulers. Because Nigeria was stolen ab initio in 1966. Since 1966 till date, Nigeria has not been ruled by law. It has been ruled essentially by the will of its current captor. That captor have been both military and civilian, but it has certainly not been ruled by the will of its people. So I have never once agreed that we should proceed as we are. I've always believed that there is a need to restructure our governance systems. That would obviously include a restructuring of the regions. I frankly don't believe that it's about the nomenclature. Look, Britain is a unitary system, but it has devolved more powers to the home countries, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, than Nigeria that claims to be a federal system. So it's not really in the names that we call them. Nigeria says it's a democracy, but you and I know that our votes do not count. So it is not in truth a democracy. Every democracy is governed by law. Ours is not governed by law. It is governed by the will of men. So I frankly don't, let's agree on that. I do not buy the idea that Nigeria should be as it is. No, I don't. The second thing, when you talk about the acquisitive acumen of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it's not about him. It's the system that has created and enabled him. I referred to this issue in my book, and I went as far as to say that if Bola Ahmed Tinubu had been alive during Obafemi Awolowo's time, he would have died as one of the most revered of Yoruba rulers and leaders, because he's a very intelligent man. But that intelligence is not harnessed to any overarching vision of a better society. It's about acquiring for the self. So you see excellent ideas polluted. You see excellent personnel. He spots talents better than any other person I know of in contemporary Nigerian politics. But look around. What have become of them? They've become part and parcel of the same system that even Bola Ahmed Tinubu once professed to fight. So the issues are really not about persons. The system will create monsters out of saints because the system is corruptive. It actually is corruptive. Look at all the saints that have entered government. I'm the one, the call was coming in for me.
I understand
but
it.
I've taken it off. Now,
Thank you.
look at all the saints that have entered government offices in Nigeria. Look at all of them. What became of them? All of them. Look at them. Name one person. In fact, I think only Professor Wole Soyinka and Baba Taisho Lanrin have the distinction of having served in any capacity in the Nigerian state, especially in the last 35 years or thereabout, and emerged unscathed. It's a corruptive system that does everything to render it. Even an angel would be rendered a demon if it comes to Nigeria to work within the Nigerian system. You think it is out of nothing that I came out the other day and said equivocally that I'm not looking for any appointive office and I will never run for any election under this constitution. I know what I'm talking about. I'm 52. I don't want look, if you figure a man's life in number of days, you count a lifetime as a day. At 52, I'm about what? Like 5 o'clock in the day. You think I want my life destroyed? I don't want my life destroyed by appointive or elective office under this system. This system is corrupt. It is evil. You cannot bring anything good out of this system. It is designed to corrupt, and it is designed to deliver exactly what it is delivering. It is incapable of delivering anything different. So,
okay, let's round up on this note. So, whose duty will it be to change this system itself?
It is we.
How do we go about it?
My brother, you know,
you have mentioned education.
No, the first step is education. You educate your people, educate them sufficiently, and then you can mobilize them. If you don't educate a person, you cannot mobilize him behind any cause. What are you exactly? Nothing changes when persons changes in Nigeria. First of all, he was the one who said he was shoeless, and then they brought the Saint of Dora. That one was meant to bring change. They were chorusing change. By 2019, it was next level of suffering. Look at where we are. So you really cannot tell people, let's go and vote for this person, and that will change the system. It can't change on the basis of personnel. But we need to keep drumming this into ourselves. I would rather spend time educating the people sufficiently before asking them to come behind any line of action. The one thing I can say to you categorically is this. This is not normal. and we must not normalize it by our own silence. When sufficient numbers of us have resolved not to normalize this insanity and are speaking out against it, what happens is that enough others will take up the chorus because they understood that this is something to which they are equally related. If I am asking you to come and fight in a war that you have nothing at stake, why should you come out? But this is a collective thing. Your children, my own children, the future of I know that if I die today the way I am and Nigeria does not change, my children are doomed. I didn't make any alternative plans for them. I don't have a second passport for any child. My children are in Nigeria with me. I have nowhere else to go. We are all here. Why can I sleep easy and quiet knowing that I can see what will happen tomorrow? I said it the other day. We are already on the road to Mogadishu. We have to reverse. Some people are, the people in southern Kaduna, they are already in Mogadishu. The persons in the northwestern part of Nigeria, they are already in Mogadishu. The persons from the president's home state, they are already in Mogadishu. We that are closer to the ocean, we are the ones on our way to Mogadishu. It was Sheikh Kuti that I heard say the other day. He said people are not running away, the people are not migrating from Nigeria again. They are escaping because they can see we are on the road to Mogadishu. Nigerian soldiers have been annihilated within its own territory. It's not fighting a foreign war within its own territory. People are strapping bombs to them.
What's going on?
And it's not in any other person's hand. It's up to us. It's not anybody's. It's our fight. It's nobody else's. Once upon a time, we used to lie to ourselves and believe America will come and save us. Is it Donald Trump that hasn't finished saving his own house that is going to come to Nigeria to come and save us? It's in our hands.
I thank you so much, Mr. Dele Farotimi, author of the book Do Not Die in Their War. Gentlemen and ladies, I'm going to let him go now because I had to hijack him. And if you want to get a copy of the free book, you can go to www.delefarotimi.com, www.delefarotimi.com, and you can see the book cover live on your screen right now. You can see the name, the author, and that's what it looks like. So you can go to delefarotimi.com to find a free copy of that book. Any parting word for us as we close the broadcast?
It's very important that we all keep Omoyele Sowore in mind. However much you might agree or disagree with his style, and I have had occasion to disagree with his style in the past, although today I'm eternally grateful to him for that same style, because if he hadn't been who he is, we would not be talking today. So let's be clear about that. But we all need to keep him top of mind. That man has a wife. He has children. The fact that the Nigerian state would release 601 terrorists back into society. But the Nigerian state, you note, I'm calling state. I'm not talking about Buhari. This is beyond him. This is about the state. That the Nigerian state and its judicial system would find the grace to keep that man more or less imprisoned in Abuja whilst he's busy freeing terrorists speaks volume as to the priorities of the Nigerian state. It is unconscionable in the extreme, wicked, evil, unjust that that man has been left caged in Abuja, all because it demanded a change. It actually sickens me that we still speak of justice in Nigeria when the state and its judicial system can find the grace to do what it has done to that man, and we, on whose behalf the man presumed to speak, can find the grace, sometimes condemn him, sometimes abuse him when we need to be supporting him. Revolutionary salute, Omoyele, enough respect. That's my final word. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's it from Mr. Dele Farotimi. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. I'm going to at this time ask that if you just joined, we just had the author of the book, Do Not Die in Their War, something you can see on your screen right now. So if you want a copy of the book, please go to www.delefarotimi.com and download a free copy. Now I'm going to announce that shortly, maybe some later soon in the day, I'm going to have another guest, and we are going to be talking about uh, the church, our GOs, our clergies. This is also somebody who has been to churches and had experiences. She's a woman, by the way. Um, I mean, the next guest I'm going to have in later today is a woman. We are going to be talking about how Nigerian pastors are contributing to the wrong psychology for Nigerians, wrong belief, wrong notions, wrong moves, wrong character, wrong everything, and how they can do it better instead of doing what they are doing right now. So I mentioned it before, what I experienced in the hand of pastors and why I stopped going to Redeemed Christian Church of God. She also has her own experience trying to help people, and the pastors, what she heard from pastors, saying that the money should rather come to to the GO instead of to the people who actually need the resources. Well, gentlemen and ladies, at this point, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I'll see you again later today. I appreciate you always. I leave you as usual with Larry Safari, and this one, as you know, Vagabonds in Power. Bye.